religion is poison in Russia. And if you were Jewish, you had a Jewish stamp in your passport. Still, they considered it a nationality, even under communism. So you would do whatever you could, then you'd go get an engineering job in Russia, right, because it's communism, and they'd see this passport, oh, sorry, this guy's going. Make a mistake. If you lose your money, it doesn't matter. Because here's the problem and why people are stuck. They overanalyze. They overthink. They come up with every reason not to move. Insecurities, what I've learned, can drive you. They drive you to greatness. Everyone has a story, right? You're walking around with a story. If you look deep enough, you'll find your story. You can set whatever goal you want, but until you work on those systems and processes or habits, which start with your thoughts, nothing will come. Now, there will come a time where what you've created is no longer serving you. That just means you need to learn something to get to the blessing on the other side.
Hey guys, welcome to the YM Show. This is your host here, Yosef Manicherry. Sorry I sound like this today, but I'm super sick, and this is about 2 weeks after I filmed with Jerry. And second thing is, the camera angle's a bit off on me, so if you're watching on Spotify and YouTube, it is what it is. It's definitely off-centered. But on this episode, I had on Jerry Katz, who has well over 20 years of experience in the insurance world, specifically here in Florida. He helps lots of investors and property owners save millions of dollars every single year in insurance. He insures over $4 billion of real estate. In this episode, if you're interested, we learn a lot about how insurance works, how to save money, what you actually need to be insured on, what you don't need to do. He also talks about his story, being an immigrant, starting, learning about real estate, and there is a lot to learn here. He talks about how to hire properly. I think this episode is packed with real life lessons. Before we start, please like and subscribe. It really helps grow this little podcast. I'm working really hard on growing it. And leave a comment. If you liked it, you didn't like it, or you want something else, leave a comment. Really, really means a lot. Before we hop into this episode, if you want to save money on your property, whether you're a manager, you're an owner, you're an investor, you're probably overpaying for your cleaning contracts. So reach out to GBC Facility Services, and they will most likely be able to help you, especially here in Florida. They're amazing. They do a lot of our properties. They're just the best. I mean, if you want free annual carpet cleaning upon sign up, reach out to them, tell them the YM Show sent you, and they'll be happy to help you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Thank you so much and have a great day.
All right, Jerry Katz, thank you for coming on the pod.
My pleasure, buddy.
Awesome to see you again.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about a lot of things here. I guess we're going to start with one question: is why the heck is the insurance so much in Florida? That's what everyone wants to know. Nobody's doing deals now. Things aren't penciling out.
Correct.
Between the interest rates and insurance. So you're the insurance pro, so I want to kind of get your 2 cents on all that.
I mean, it's a complicated issue, right? And here's the problem. I'll just start at the basics and why I'm considered the insurance pro. It's because when I moved down from New York in 2001, I started buying real estate, multifamily, Miami Beach, all that good stuff. So let's say, I got up to 50 units, right, in a couple of years. Then what happened? A hurricane rolled through. I think back then it was the back end of Wilma or Katrina, right, because they cut through and so on. So all of a sudden, let's say I had a $100,000 insurance expense on all my properties for the year with wind and all that good stuff. Overnight, literally after a hurricane, the next quarter when reinsurance, today I can say it's when reinsurance resets quarterly, my insurance premiums went up $100,000, right? And it's a very common thing here in Florida, especially if you're out of the Northeast, you're out of California, you're in the Midwest, you come down here, you're coming here for the demographics, the sun, the lifestyle, you're starting to, buy real estate, and then ba-bomb. So what happens when your NOI disappears by $100,000 overnight? So most, they panic. Sometimes it gets worse. So a $100,000 increase in insurance or decrease in your net operating income, let's say at a 5.5 cap today, you just lost close to $1.6 million in property value. Or what if you're getting a refinance or qualifying for a loan, right? DSCR, debt service coverage ratios. You're done. So it happened to me. Right? And at that time, I owned Investors Realty, Greater Broward Mortgage. I was scaling. I had a couple mentors and all that good stuff. So I knew at one point, if I don't get into the insurance game in Florida, this problem will, how do you fix it? Because I'm relying on
You're at the mercy of insurance.
Correct. And who am I relying on? A Fortune 500 company that in the last 10 years, every insurance agency, like the big names, I don't even want to say them, they're all private equity roll-ups. So private equity roll-ups focus on what? Profits, operating. So the industry as a whole you operate real estate. You can renovate quicker, faster than anyone, right? I've seen your rehabs, okay? I know you're a guy on the ground. I know how you pick your cabinets. I know how you pick your floors. I know how you do it for long, because you're always, a real operator understands longevity, net operating income, all of that. And that's the levers that make you profitable even when things go wrong. Now, in the insurance world, most real estate investors and sophisticated real estate investors, what do they say? They think it's an expense on their P&L. They think it's the bank requires it, right? Then you're dealing with a Fortune 500 company or an independent agent who doesn't know much, but most of the industry today has been rolled up. So the smallest firms are owned by the big ones today, focused on profits. Their job is to make commissions and to take home money, right? And private equity, shareholders, all that good stuff. So at its core, once I dug in deep, I realized it's a flawed industry, meaning that even my son, who went to school at Ole Miss, the insurance school, right? He comes as an intern to my office, Premier, and he's telling my clients that you need terrorism insurance, you need full value flood, you need sinkhole coverage, because he's trained on risk, right? And coverage amounts, because he's trained by the insurance industry. So you as a real estate investor, myself as a real estate investor, we take risk all day, right? We rehab, we gut have, we value add, we go into a bad neighborhood, we take risk.
Calculated
right?
risk, yeah.
Calculated risk. Insurance industry does too, but not really, because the odds of a claim are less than 0.5%, right? So what's happening is my son comes in and will sell you the biggest bloated insurance policy ever, and it pays him 10 to 12%, right? So the industry itself, to me, is flawed. It's not aligned with a commercial real estate investor. They don't even understand the word NOI. They understand deductible, right? AOP, all perils deductible. They understand your premium went up, right? Because it pays me more. So, but when you model insurance at its core, you really, the odds of a real, general liability is a bigger claim, right? People slip and fall, things like that. I would say insure that. But when it comes to hurricanes, total losses, fires, listen, in Broward and Dade, the average fire department responds in under 4 minutes. So the fire department will do more damage to your building than the fire. So listen, if you're buying newer construction, 2001 or newer, you're at the new hurricane codes. Look at this building, concrete, hurricane windows. The odds of something happening are very, 0.001%. Now, there are people listening that say, but wait a minute, what if a massive hurricane comes and takes me out and stuff like that? Well, in the world of entrepreneurship, risk, stocks, real estate, if somebody told you there was a 0.001% chance of this happening, are you going to spend $150,000 on wind insurance? Right?
No.
Or flip it. When you make an investment into something, do they tell you there's a 0.011% chance of this happening? You're not going to invest in it, right? You want the odds in your favor, right? We have a 60% chance of making 8% on our money in this private equity investment. Okay, right? So I know a lot of people, insurance people, will be on here telling you that, global warming and all this stuff, and there's more hurricanes. Yes, that's all true. But at its core, right, and no one tells you this, the industry, I think, is flawed for all of these reasons. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you? Right. And, I believe in the universe. You can call it God. You can call it Einstein, physics, or whatever. The universe is set up to win-win situation. In insurance, I don't know. Listen, Warren Buffett, you've seen his stock. 50% of his holdings are insurance, right? Because it's this recurring revenue machine. And yes, they look at it as an annual contract, an insurance contract. So at the end of that year, if no hurricanes, for example, came, they profited huge. I mean, huge. Your average insurance, $1 spent on insurance, to give you an idea, 18% commission. Okay, 10 to 12 to the retailer, 6% to the wholesaler. Okay? Those are the middlemen that are just moving it. Then you have, let's say, 40 cents on the dollar for reinsurance. That's if they buy it, because they don't have to, especially in a state like Florida. Okay? It's not regulated. So they technically don't have to buy the insurance for the insurance, but let's say it is. So 40 cents on the dollar. So let's say you're up at 60 cents, and then there's around 5% at admin. Now, if there's no hurricane, all of that's profit.
Killing it.
Killing it. So this is in property insurance. Now, there are places like workers' comp, okay? Those insurance carriers fold and go out of business all the time. Why? Because people get hurt, right? On the job, construction, all that good stuff. So those are very tight margins, and that's why the government exists. If you don't have a workers' comp policy, you're going to find yourself with a PEO that help manages you claims, right, from people getting hurt on a construction site, all that stuff, restaurants, or the JUA, which is the state pool, because the insurance carriers can't make a profit in that world. But in the world of real estate, our world, if you're on a coastal property, your biggest concern is flood, right, which is real. So, but again, FEMA provides that most of the time, and only up to $500,000. Why? Because the real risk gets covered by the government, just like in workers' comp. It's called the JUA, which is a Florida fund, right? Because you're required to have workers' comp. And if the insurance model can't be profitable in that segment, the government is where we rely on. That's how it works. So flood is another incidence of that in the world of property insurance, right? So, how many properties do you own in Florida?
We own about 9, I believe.
Right. How long have you been in Florida?
Been in Florida about 3 years.
And everything is covered, right? Hurricane, wind.
Probably.
Right.
I just deal with CapEx. I deal with construction.
Correct. So how much money how many claims have you made in 3 years? Yeah, I know your brothers may be handling that stuff because
we definitely made a few. We definitely made a few because we got flooded up in Fort Myers a few times, multiple times.
Right.
From Milton, from the other two. It's just like, it's such a headache. It's like you finally get a property rolling and then
flood.
Boom, flood.
Correct.
Redo the drywall, redo the flooring, redo the baseboards, air it out.
Right.
It's
So isn't it funny? Why is the government the only one that FEMA offers flood? It's the best place you can get it and the least expensive. So why? Because it's very difficult for insurance carriers to exist in real high-risk situations, like Fort Myers when Irma, was it Irma or Ida or whatever, hit.
There's like a bunch back to back.
Right. By the way, when that hurricane hit in 2022, 90% of the claims were filed under hurricane insurance, wind insurance, right, with deductibles. But they were all denied. Why? Because it was a flood event, because it was rising water. And most hurricane policies don't cover rising water. They don't cover storm surge. They cover wind-driven rain. And today's construction codes in Florida, if you change 30% of the windows in a property, you got to change them all to hurricane window. Otherwise, you don't get a permit. So the codes and the new roofs, the straps, this. So I think you get my point.
Yeah.
So yes, the market fluctuates. Yes, storms can derail you. But if you have the right person on your team that thinks real estate, NOI, and uses insurance as a profit lever, asks you about what risks you want to take, let's really assess this property in Fort Myers. What could happen here? What's the distance from the coast? Is it a flood zone? It is. What's the most risky thing that can happen? High crime score, liability, firearms, dog bites, right? That's how you underwrite real estate, right? But most people in the real estate world, they're chasing interest rates, right? They use Fannie, Freddie, CMBS, local, whatever. They're looking for non-recourse loans, right?
Yeah.
Well, they require insurance requirements, right? So, and they say, okay, I'm going to work with Meridian Capital, or I'm going to work with Berkadia, or whatever it is. They got the best rate, the best terms, everything's great, I'm getting a 6%, so on and so forth. What they didn't see is the insurance requirements that come along with it. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to talk. And if you're dealing with Fannie and Freddie, I'm not saying there isn't a time that you should be using them, especially on new construction. But in high-risk coastal states, you buy a 1970s property in Florida, South Florida, North Florida, and you use Fannie and Freddie, the insurance requirements will destroy you, 40%.
That's why that's why so many deals are not penciling out for so many people, because they don't
Correct.
necessarily know what you know.
Correct.
So I just want to backtrack to when you said so your insurance went up by $100,000.
Correct.
And you're like, this is just insane.
Insane.
So how did you go about figuring out the industry and kind of making your own insurance company, and kind of what you do, if you can explain to the audience how you can help other real estate investors here in Florida? Because a lot of people are nervous to buy. They're like, oh, I can't, and the insurance is too crazy. I'm staying away.
You know, the way you learn how the machine works, my friend Danny Catan, I interviewed him. He always says, Jerry, if you don't understand how the machine works, you don't know the inefficiencies, the levers. How do you solve problems, right? So you know it in real estate or construction or the CapEx side, right? You know how to rehab a unit quickly. You know how to do it efficiently, right? Why? Because you get your hands dirty, right? So I said, okay, how am I going to trust an insurance guy, right, that is focused on commissions and trained to, you know, protect me without even asking my risk tolerance, or just cater to the bank's guidelines, right? So I took a gentleman by the name of Doug Levy. He was young. He was an insurance agent. I met him, very honest, very ethical, super smart. And he did some of our insurance policies, and I kept probing and asking and asking. And I could tell he wanted to do the right thing, always, right? What was your concern? Well, the insurance is too high. I'm not going to get this loan. That's the lever, right? Over the debt service coverage ratio. So long story short, it took me 2 years to convince him, but I asked him to open an agency. And I said, come into our office. I am owning and operating real estate. I have Investors Realty with 2 partners and mentors. And now we have Old Florida Mortgage. Set up in our office building, and I'll make it rain, right? Because all the transactions, the brokers and everything. And that's how it started. And I remember trying to get our first appointment, just to get, like, for example, Progressive. We needed an auto insurance carrier. It took us like a year to get that.
Because just to get started.
Just to get started, yeah. So long story, after 2 years and continuous pursuit of trying to get carriers and contracts and wholesalers, we got going, and we were good. But what I saw was how they underwrite the deal, right? How do they judge the risk? How the wholesalers work? How the market is so convoluted. It's crazy. And how to start an insurance syndicate. Like, you could start your own programs, right? So long story short, to make it for your audience, is if we're making, you know, sausage, you see a finished product, but until you understand how the sausage machine works, how it puts on the casing, how it puts the spices in, how it grinds the meat, you can't change the sausage, right?
Yeah.
So if I can't solve the insurance problem on the outside, I've got to get into the inside, just like you do your CapEx. And that's what I learned. And I was on around a 4 or 5 year education, staying very close to Doug, because I'm the rainmaker. I hand him over to Doug. I trusted him. He's a nice, good kid, honest, integrity. But how can I confidently say, hey, go over here and use my guy for insurance if I don't understand what he's doing, right? I need to know how the machine works. So I did that. It worked out very well. And I learned the industry, right? And I understood where, the profits are made, where the levers can be pulled to reduce costs, reduce, coverages. I mean, there's so much, man. Like, you buy a $10 million building. You got a 5% wind deductible, right? That's $500,000. You get a wind storm come through in Florida. What are the odds of getting paid? $500,000 in damage. The roofs that you're doing over in Sunrise, even have $500,000 in roofs.
I mean, if we pay full, like the regular GC, it's probably about 1,000 squares. They're charging about 1,000 a square, about $1 million. So
you're only getting half that anyways, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And what are the odds of a total loss of all those roofs? Very, very, very limited. So ask yourself, would you rather put $200,000 back into your NOI? Because you may not get a storm for 4 years. There's $800,000 you spent on insurance. Why not put a reserve in, which I've seen your brothers do?
Yeah.
You get it? But if you're dealing with Fannie and Freddie on a 1970s building, you better have an insurance agent that knows how to get waivers, because they do that too. I could get deep.
Yeah, I just want to. We could technically do a whole nother episode just on insurance, and if audience and people on YouTube or Spotify, like, hey, like, get Jerry back for that specific topic, we'll do that.
Awesome.
But I kind of want to go in because you do so many different things. We hopped right into the insurance thing of like why the heck insurance is so expensive in Florida, and everyone wants to know that. But I want to. It
doesn't have to be.
And it doesn't have to be if you speak to Jerry,
and if you deal with an agent that understands risk and your goal. Right? Because how am I going to solve your problem as a real estate investor if I don't know what your problems are? Your problem is NOI. You can't get a deal done because of the cap rates. The margin's too small. So what if I gave you a lever that can change everything? Then I know how to solve your problem as a real estate investor. I know how to deal with the insurance side. I can put you with the right bank, because that's another lever.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And the deal gets done.
Because most people are using, like you said, institutional.
Right.
Fannie Freddie. It's not going to.
And everybody underwrites the same deals. So what differentiates yourself? I'll tell you what, the operating expenses that you know how to trim down, because you can take a 5.5 cap and make it 6 just by trimming your operating expenses.
Yeah.
And you can make a 5.5 cap work if you call the right insurance guy and pick the right lender. That turns into a 6.5 cap because you're avoiding all the, terrorism insurance is 6%. It's required by Fannie and Freddie, right? It's required. God forbid.
Well, now with what's going on. Everyone listening is June 10th right now. We're having the riots in California as we speak.
I know.
Because Trump is, what's Trump doing that they're all mad about?
The ICE, the deportation, they're I call bringing back California. I don't know.
So I just want to hop back to kind of your personal journey, how you started, and go back to I guess your humble beginnings, and because a lot of people get intimidated, right? They see, I'm speaking to a lot of my people who listen are younger guys like me, and they see a guy who's like you, entrepreneur, very successful, multiple businesses, involved in many different things, and they're like, oh, like that's unachievable. I can't get there. So I want to talk about like you at 20. What did it look like? What was in your brain? And how did you get to where you were? And I want to hear the humble beginning stories.
Yeah, no, of course. So like most Americans, right? We're immigrants, right? So we immigrated 1975. I was 3 years old. Yep. Russian immigrant, Jewish family, right? Moscow, actually Ukrainian roots, things like that. And we immigrated, and, we want to get into that story. It's because no matter what you did in Russia, you couldn't get ahead, right? And today, people say that I'm my grandfather. My grandfather was in Moscow. He probably ran like a whole black market undercover organization. And it sounds crazy, but it's not. I'm talking about having a government-owned store in the subways of Moscow, and then he had 25 Jewish ladies knitting sweaters on the side that he was selling under the table to get cash flow, because if you didn't pay your way through Russia, you couldn't do anything. And again, my father was an engineer. My mother was a chemical engineer. They were all educated, but the religion is poison in Russia. And if you were Jewish, you had a Jewish stamp in your passport. Still, they considered it a nationality, even under communism. So you would do whatever you could. Then you'd go get an engineering job in Russia, right, because it's communism, and they'd see this passport. Sorry, this guy's going first. So there was anti-Semitism. You couldn't get ahead. So in 1975, when Israel was putting pressure on them to let him go, my dad said, I'm out. And he did. He had to go to the Communist Party. Everyone had to be a Communist Party member and basically say treason. And people were afraid, right, because your neighbors want to kill you at that point because you're no longer a comrade. But I won't get too much. So long story short, we made it out of there with 2 Torahs and some diamonds swallowed, and that was it. It's funny, but it's the truth. And on a train, protected by the Israeli army, on our way to Austria, right? And then eventually across the borders. There was no EU back then. So the Israeli army was paying off each time we crossed the Italian border. My dad told me stories that the Israeli army was paying off customs, immigrations. They had deals. We ended up in Italy. And long story short is just to get to the humble beginnings part, we ended up in Michigan, out of all places, Detroit, because my parents were engineers. My dad was told that Israel was hard to get a job back then, and New York was too crime-ridden. And it was in the 70s.
Probably still is.
Yeah.
New York City.
Right. So we ended up in Detroit, and I was dropped in a Chabad community, and I ended up at yeshiva. So So let's get past all that and back to the podcast show. But it's interesting because it was my mother, my father, me and my brother, and my grandfather, who people say I'm like today. And he left behind his other two sons because his mother went, right? And they were afraid to leave. Still to this, they came like 20 years later. So at that point, the good thing is by the time I was, I don't know, around 9 years old, we moved into a wealthy neighborhood, but we still rented apartments, right? And we were living in one apartment. Parents were struggling. They went to work at Dunkin' Donuts, Shell, whatever they can until they learned the language back then. So we lived in a neighborhood that was wealthy, but I wasn't. But I went to a school with a lot of wealthy kids, right? So if I zip forward, I know where I got all this. I constantly had an insecurity that I could not keep up with my friends, right? They were going on ski vacations. They were going to California. They were going here. They were going to camps, right? And I couldn't do it. You know, I had to get subsidized from the JCC, I remember, to get to the camp. But, and my name was Igor back then, right? And I remember this day. My dad tried to get everyone in the school to come to my birthday party, and only a couple people showed up at my birthday party because I was Igor. I was this crazy Russian kid, right, that no one knew. I was teased. And only one or two people showed up to the birthday party. And it's funny because I've done the work to find out where this all came from. But since that day, I think I've lived my life saying that my birthday parties will always be full, right? And I don't know what happened because I could have become introverted and depressed, right? And shut down. But whatever drove that day, I'm always going to have the table filled with people, right? And insecurities, what I've learned, you know, doing a lot of reflection, can drive you. And that's okay, right? They drive you to greatness, even though it's an insecurity. Yeah. You're trying to keep up. You're trying to do whatever. So by the time I got into high school, you know, I was the guy that was the class clown, throwing all the parties at the house. I did whatever I can. I was working selling women's shoes. I was hustling for valet parking. And I remember we had a family member that got into the country club. She came later. And I was the valet parking guy. And she didn't even give me the time of day. And I was like, is that my cousin? Like stuff like that, right? But so I knew that no matter what I did, I wanted to be like everybody else. And in the 80s, yeah, that was 88 to 92, that area, I had a poster in my room that said the one with the most toys wins. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, and you talked about that on one of your podcasts.
Exactly.
A picture of it.
So there's a picture of it, right? But that really was my driving source. And like, you look back and like, okay, was it good? Was it bad? But I was the, C student that all I cared about was attention and that everybody would come to my birthday parties. In high school, I was organizing parties, right? I was doing this. I was doing everything. So that was my driver. It's interesting. But most of the A students that were my friends, they work now for C students. It's weird. Not everybody, right? There's geniuses out there, but that's what I've seen over, now I'm 50, I'll be 54 in November. And that's what I saw. It was the hustlers, the shakers, the attention makers, right? The class clowns. I mean, it was crazy. So that was me, and that was the humble beginning.
Wow. So what was your first job besides all your side hustles, like out of high school?
Yeah.
Or did you go to college? And yeah, I just want people to be able to relate to this message. Like people, let's say the person out there, struggling in 9 to 5, just getting by, or the person out there who doesn't have that upbringing, kind of like someone like you who didn't come from money, who came to a new country, or someone just feels like it's really hard to make a living these days. We're in a recession potentially, right. And they're just, I want to be able to give those people like motivation through your story of like,
that's
you can
mindset.
Make it,
Yeah, that's all mindset, right? Like one thing I have is constant. Everyone has a story, right? You're walking around with a story, right? And if you look deep enough, you'll find your story.
What do you mean by that, by your story?
So my story is I never give up. I say it to myself in my head. I'm a problem solver. That's why I got to the insurance piece. That's why I made a deal work, right? I make relationships work. I never give up, and I believe that I can overcome anything. When somebody throws stress or a problem at me, I immediately shift to problem solving and solutions. So my story that I walk around with is, I'll never give up. I'll find a solution, and I got it. That's it. So other people walk around with stories like nothing I do is ever going to be good enough. the opposite, right? And you and I both have friends like that, that you see their patterns showing up, right? Nothing I do is good enough. Nope, that's not good enough. Nope, I didn't graduate good enough. I didn't do the school good enough. I didn't do the job good enough. It wasn't good enough for my mom. It wasn't good enough for my dad, right? And that's a story that plays in their head all the time. So when you meet people, we watch sitcoms, right? So what's your favorite sitcom?
I don't watch sitcoms. Honestly, I
Okay,
watch
back in
YouTube.
the day, what's a show?
I'll
Okay.
watch YouTube when I'm bored,
So
to be honest.
give me a show like, did you
The
watch?
Big Bang Theory, maybe? Is it
Okay.
considered a sitcom?
So pick a character. You watch the same character on Big Bang Theory. I'm not familiar with it, but I can do.
I mean, that's just what I'm thinking of. I don't really know any of the characters. I probably
Okay,
watched
so
it
let's
once
say
or
we
twice.
watch Jerry Seinfeld, right? Which is a big thing. George always shows up every single week getting screwed over by his girlfriends, his parents, his, the job, the guy who owns the Yankees. He's a little funny guy. No matter what, every day he is a victim, whether it's his job, his family, his relationships. You get it? So who creates that story? You do.
I think it's a choice.
It's 100% it's a choice. But he doesn't know that. That's his software. He looks at everything as everything's going to screw me over. And guess what? You create exactly what you believe. So if you carry that story, you have that story. That's it. So that in me, what I understand is, because I'm very empathetic or an empath, I've been told, like one of my biggest issues when I was young is growing my businesses. I would hire salespeople, and I would hire somebody that I could see had self-limiting beliefs. But I would still hire them because in my head I would say, listen, I can show you how to get over that. Because in my story, I get over anything, right? And I can see where they were self-doubting themselves or a self-limiting belief or things like that. So I would hire them. So I would be fixing them or pumping them up. Here's the problem with that. It would cap my businesses. I would be the smartest guy in the room. So there's a glass ceiling, right? And the next thing you know, I'm building a team of people that I'm coaching all the time, right? To get over a self-limiting belief. Or you could be a better salesman, or you could be a better CFO or an accountant or whatever it is, or back office, right? I was doing it because I thought if I helped them, they would probably respect me more and like me more because no one came to my birthday. I learned that about myself.
So you realize you're trying to, in some way, being a people pleaser.
Correct. I was pleasing others, but lifting them up, right? Because
Helping. You were doing it like in a...
right, but what am I doing it for? My root, I thought I was helping people, not. It was a selfish cause because I thought they'd love me more, respect me more, right? If I showed somebody how to go from making $50,000 a year at your old job that you thought you were capped, if you come here, I'll show you how to make $100,000. But let's get rid of these self-limiting beliefs that you can't sell, $1 million insurance policy, that you're used to selling $20,000 policies. We move portfolios. Over there, you're doing $20,000. But they're stuck. So I would hire them. So my businesses were stuck because I was stuck. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so how did you get people to flip that switch? And how did you, because you probably had so many people that you mentored and coached. So what did you see? Like, how can someone shift their mindset? If someone's out there and they're like making whatever it is, X amount, and they think like that's the most they can make, or they feel like, oh, this is not enough, but I need to make more. How can you get them to have like that get rid of the glass ceiling, essentially?
I mean,
because I feel like I have that too.
Right.
In my own, because I'm young, I'm like, oh, how is someone making that much? Or how are these, guys doing all these businesses? Or how is someone doing such big deals? Or how is someone making that much? Like, how do you get rid of that limiting belief? Do you have to experience that wealth first? Or just, like, I'm just curious
yes, if you start moving and you start experiencing success, it will build habits, right? So one of my favorite quotes, and I'm sure you've heard it before, is you'll never reach your goals. You will always fall back to the level of your systems and processes, right? As a person, what's your systems and processes? Your belief systems and your habits. So if you believe, right, that you can't make this much money, or you can't do that deal, or I'm not smart enough for this, or the girl's too good looking, or whatever it is, right?
and then strive for it.
So that's your habits. It's your systems and your processes of how you think, how you feel, what you believe in yourself. So you can set whatever goal you want, right? But until you work on those systems and processes or habits, which start with your thoughts, nothing will come. You're stuck. You're not broken. You're not scared. You're stuck because of those belief systems. So you've got to, how do you start to recognize it? You have to recognize it because the easiest way to do it, if you're really interested in asking yourself, how do I get from here to there, is what I call a blind spot exercise, right? So, for example, you pick 30 of your closest friends and family, right, that know you for a long time, right, for at least a few years or 5 years or 10 years. Then you ask one person that you really trust to facilitate it. And you can do it through email. And you say, okay, I want to work on myself, right? And I'm assigning Jerry to do this blind spot exercise. He's going to send you an email. It's going to have 10 questions about me, right? 100% I will never see the emails, right? You're contacting your 30 people. And Jerry's going to facilitate this. So please answer those 10 questions.
Yeah, I won't know who said what.
Right, honestly. So you won't know. That's the key, because otherwise they're not going to share with you, right? So you get that exercise going. I can give you an email template to do it, and your brother could do it, for example, for you.
We're going to have ChatGPT do it.
Yeah, we're going to have ChatGPT do it. But the key is the confidentiality and how you structure it, because if they think that you're going to see the 10 questions answered, and they're going to ask you questions like, what do you think my biggest strength is? What's my biggest weakness? What annoys you about me? Why do you want to spend time with me? Right? These kind of things. So you're going to get around 10 or 12 questions that are sent out to 30 close people that know you, coworkers, family, friends, whatever you want, right? And then I'm the pillar of confidence. It comes back to me, and I promise it will not be shared, and it's a growth exercise for you. What's going to come back is a pattern. Now, one person who wants to mess around may say something stupid. Another person may say something that's not even relevant. But out of 30 people, the sampling, data wins all arguments. That's my rule, not the emotions. Data, right? That's why, Facebook works, Google, all that stuff, and the YouTube algorithm, data. So you're going to see a pattern about yourself, right? And it's going to show you what you don't see about yourself. And there you go. You're going to get your story from there. You're going to get, what do I walk around with? You're going to hear like, oh, he always thinks he's too smart. He's always right. He doesn't trust anybody, right? Or I really respect him, or whatever. So you're going to, and that's where it is. So it starts with that self-reflection, because if you don't change your habits or your systems and processes, and you keep repeating the same thing, how are you going to reach your goals? I have a saying at my company, and what I do is I constantly, every week, evaluate what's working and what's not. Those are two key words. And I look at everything as a system. I don't care if it's your relationship, your business, the street, a hockey game. Everything is a system. What does system stand for? Save yourself time, energy, money.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So you turned me on to Alex Hormozy when I met you a year ago. So talk about his systems, right?
Yeah.
Everything's inputs and outputs. It's the same thing with your brain, your habits, your belief systems. So you ask yourself, okay, what's working and what's not? Here's my series of inputs and here's my series of outputs. But if you don't self-reflect, or you don't even understand your system, that was the blind spot exercise. It's going to show you how your system shows up, right? Because we all have different belief systems, all come from the same house, right? So if you reflect on that and every week ask yourself, okay, first of all, identify your system and be open-minded. If you're not open-minded, and when you see the results and you get defensive and you're in denial, which is 95% of people's responses, they don't want to even see it. They don't want to believe what they saw, right? How others look at them. Could be good or bad. Doesn't matter. Because you have your own belief system on yourself. That's your story. Like mine, I'll overcome. I found out that when I did my first blind spot exercise, I found out that my legacy wasn't going to be that great. I found out about 15 years ago that a lot of people said, Jerry, you always think you're right. And whenever we want to put input into it, you don't give a shit. You want it done your way and you won't take input. Bad leader. Like Trump. Okay?
Yeah.
He comes in with his agenda. He's not asking other people. He's got his plan, his thing. And yeah, it works for that guy. That's his story, right? And it works for him. But that's why us sitting on the outside is like, this guy's a pompous asshole, right? He thinks he can dictate. He thinks he can get rid of civil rights, all of that stuff. But for him, his story is if he doesn't do it this way, he's not going to be able to perform and be effective. And his ego's hurt and he can't succeed. He's never going to go into these self-reflections if somebody tells him that. He's still
that's
him.
like Charlie Munger. I think they had a video of him in 2010. Saw this one?
No.
He was saying, like, they asked him, what do you think of Trump? This was like 15 years ago, like potentially being president. And he said, like, due to ego, he thinks it's a bad idea.
There you go. So let's go back in everything we've been talking about. Where did that come from? Right? So his story is it's ego. I am a dictator, and my systems and processes.
Regarding the economy, I mean, I'm definitely happy with the previous. I mean, not to get too political, but I'm saying like previous administration.
I agree. I'm with you. But so the point I was making is Trump's not sitting and evaluating his blind spots because he's so caught into his operating system. And it gives him outputs, which according to him, he's successful. You can't stop somebody now who's almost 80 years old or whatever he is, right? He's not your age where he's self-reflecting, right? I didn't start reflecting. So back to my story is I went to University of Miami. I got thrown out for selling beer in the dorms, right? I ended up at a small automotive marketing school in West Palm Beach because if I went back to Michigan, I could have went to jail because I was selling pot and this and that, and my mom was afraid. So I never crossed a certain line, but according to them, I got to get away because I was just too many things I was trying to make money with, and I was starting to, back then marijuana was illegal, and I was still selling pot. I never went back beyond that, but I had friends that got crazy, right? What they were doing, right? So I had a professor change my life at college, junior year, at an automotive marketing school, private, straight C student, and he kept saying, hey, Katz, why you keep getting C's? He put me on the spot. He knew how to pick my ego. And one day he took me to, in West Palm Beach, he was the sales manager and general manager of Jack Colley Chevrolet. And to this day, I remember what he told me. He goes, listen, Katz, he goes, you're one of those guys. He goes, you're gonna make money. He goes, no matter what, you got something about you. You never give up. He saw it. He saw it. That's what I'm saying. He sees it from the outside. I didn't. I was still hustling, thinking, am I going to be broke my whole life? My insecurity's driving me, right? My parents can't even pay for college, barely, right? And I had to work at the same time. That's why I sold pot, because it made me more money instead of working at a restaurant. So he said two things. Two biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life. To this day, I remember it. Number one, your spouse. She'll make you or break you, right? Support you or not.
Yeah, Alex Ramosi talks about that a lot.
Exactly.
Dave Ramsey.
And he is right. I got it, okay? So I've already been divorced once, so I get it. And number two, he said to me, don't make the mistake he made. He said, if you're working a job, like he did, he basically worked for Auto Nation 25 years, right? Under Wayne Huizenga. He's really good at what he does. And he goes, but here's the thing. My boss knew that. So they gave me benefits. They gave me a 401k. They gave me health insurance. They gave me stock. They did this. And they basically chained him. What he says is they gave him a golden chain.
Like golden handcuffs, right?
Golden handcuffs. So he never had the courage to cut it. And he went too far. He got married. He started having kids, all this kind of stuff.
Can't take the risk later.
Can't take the risk. He says, if you want to do something great, cut it. Right? When you're ready, cut it, but don't wait too long. And he said before 30 to me. And that time I was maybe 21, right? And I listened. So I graduated school, and after 6 months of working in a sales in telecom called All Net Communications, knocking on doors in sales, I quit. And then my first business has failed for about a year and a half.
So you didn't get a college degree. You got kicked out of college and you went straight into sales?
I finished my senior year, but I was short 4 classes. And I promised my mother I would make them up. And the dean allowed me to walk for graduation. I never made up the 4 classes. to this day. And I reached out 10 years ago, and now the curriculum's changed. I'd have to take 18 more to get a business management and marketing degree.
So you did. So to go back. So you went to that job, and then what happened from there?
So I went.
I want to see the progression of how.
Yeah. So I went into sales, all-net communications. Back then, it's when I said to myself these things. And again, this is important versus urgent. I learned. I don't know how, but most people jump into a job, right? They have no idea why or what they want. So I said, okay, how do I make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort, right? Because that's efficiency. But at 21, 22, my dad's an engineer. He doesn't know that, mechanical engineer. So I went into telecom because that's when AT&T was broken. And all of a sudden, all these companies were selling, services, right? We had Ma Bill, it was a monopoly. So all I had to do is walk into your office, for example, here, and say, hey, you're on AT&T, you're paying $400 a month. If you switch to all-net communications, it's now $250 a month. And I got paid, it's a 12-month contract. I learned about recurring revenue. And I got paid 100% of the first month's bill. So, they taught us sales, training, knocking on doors, practice selling. I got a small base salary. In 9 months, I became one of their best sales guys. So, but it wasn't good enough for me. I felt like I mastered it really quickly, right? I was knocking on doors, cold calling, right?
That probably gave you a great skill going into life, like building that. Because
yes.
I'm not in sales, but I imagine if I did sales, it would make me way more confident. Just dealing with rejection and
100%.
Being super uncomfortable mentally.
Right. If you listen to Patrick Bet-David or anybody, they've all got these programs, and they say if you really want to be an entrepreneur, and make up to $100,000, learn sales, right? But everybody's different. There's analytical entrepreneurs who are more nerds and they're more operational, right? Elon Musk is not a sales guy. He's an engineer and analytical. He's a visionary, but he knows how to execute. But at the end of the day, he can't sell very well. But you'll learn down the road that if you're not, this is Gary V's words. I was at 14 years ago, I was at one of his conferences, and I was in the front row, and he starts screaming the F-bomb and everything, and I'm laughing. What are you laughing at? I go, laughing at you. Why? I go, because you just told us to stop doing what we're not good at and start doing what we're good at and do it 50,000 times. And the guy goes, well, why are you laughing, you big fat Russian head, right? And I said, because I'm at a self-improvement seminar, and I'm trying to fix everything that I'm not good at. He goes, you don't get the message, FFF, right? And
that's Gary V.
That's Gary V. So it hit me, right? Do what you're really good at 1,000 times and stop trying to fix what you're not good at, because you're wired a certain way.
Interesting. So you're saying use the, I guess, natural God-given gifts that
there you go.
God gives you with what if you're good with people, go into sales. If you're good with brains, maybe become an underwriter or
correct,
whatever it might be.
Right.
But also, how do you know you're not limiting yourself? Let's say someone's like, oh, I'm not good at math, so I'm not gonna get into this, or I'm not gonna. How do you know hey, I have to go ahead and learn this thing to level up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It gets complicated because some people have such self-limiting beliefs that they need to kind of reflect on that. But if you don't, most people will never get that deep, and maybe 2 to 3% of the population will understand what I'm saying, because they're so in their belief systems. So you can't argue with somebody who has their own truth. Everyone has their own truth. Whatever they believe is what they believe. We're having the same conversation right now, and you have a interpretation. That's your truth. And I have another one. It's my truth. And there's no such thing as you're right or I'm right. It's your truth. No one can argue with truth. So back to what we were saying is, yes, I believe that everybody has a gift from God, okay? And it's what comes naturally to you, right? What's easy for you? What's easy? For me, again, it was being the class clown, getting the attention, but I knew where that stemmed from when I was 6 years old, right? Why did I need everyone at my birthday party, right? Because I don't know, but I could have watched a movie that day. I could have, whatever it was, but I wanted that. So what came naturally to me from 6 to 23, 24 was to plan the party, to make sure everyone followed me, to make sure I was the guy that got the attention. That my whole life revolved around attention. And it's amazing. Today I'm an entrepreneur. I have content all over, Instagram, on YouTube and everything. So
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think that you're starting, for everyone listening, that Jerry in his 50s started a YouTube channel, and it's like even people in their 20s don't understand how the algorithm works, how content creation works. And you spent 6 months, you said, studying that?
6 months, coaches studying, yeah.
And you probably understand it better than me. Like you talking about hooks and retention rates and click-through impressions.
Right, all of that.
And you learn all that. I just find it impressive because you're like they say you can't teach what's the line?
Old dog, new tricks?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're an old dog learning new tricks.
I'm addicted to learning like you. That's why you're here. And by the way, I finally feel like I'm in my superpower, right?
I feel like you're in your groove at 50.
Oh my God. Because like I love creating. You got to love to create content. Otherwise,
it's a lot of work.
work.
People don't know.
Oh my God. The hours of looking at videos and is that the right message and edit that and this and that and everything. So I believe, so when I hire at my office to this day, I do personality tests. I don't care what a resume says. Yeah, okay, yeah, resume is good. They went to college, they got a university, it shows discipline. If I see an athlete that, went to a Division III school or Division II school, he got straight A's and did, football for 4 years, I have a lot of respect for that because of the discipline factor.
Yeah, or people say you want to hire wrestlers.
Right, or hire wrestlers or hire all those people, right? Because that's the discipline. They're naturally wired to achieve with discipline. That is 90% of people's problem, right? They can't stick to a discipline. But when we hire, the first thing we do is we write the right ad. So they write with our vision and our mission and our culture and our belief systems, then followed by what they're good at. And we send a personality test. And then when they finally get to the interview, 2 or 3 layers deep, they do a 3-minute video. They tell us about their superpower. That's our question. What is your superpower? Yeah.
Instead of asking people, like everyone says, oh, what do you think you're not good at? And then everyone goes, oh, I'm not good at, I'm too much of a perfectionist. You know what I mean? Those are like the typical hiring questions they try to ask.
Yeah. No, what's your superpower? What comes easy to you, right? And that's where you find it. So one of my favorite questions, I'll give it away here, it's fun, is give me 4 adjectives for you. Give me 4 adjectives that describe your closet.
Messy.
And
neat when my wife makes it neat.
Okay.
Colorful. Squished.
Okay. So I'll give you an idea. If I'm hiring for a controller, CFO, bookkeeper, the normal answer, if I got to the right person after, 3 layers of screening, they would say something, they'd be embarrassed. It's organized. Oh, it's organized? Yeah. Oh, yeah. What else? Well, meticulous. Okay. Is it coordinated? And then I start to probe and I go, so is it color coordinated? It's more than color coordinated. Oh, what is? Well, my skirts are this way. My shoes are this way. They're in boxes. Everything is over here and everything. Okay, great. If I went down to your car right now, is it dirty or clean? It's spotless. I go, what's in your glove box? A tissue box, a this, a that. They know. What about your kitchen? Oh, right. Like everything. So what are we listening to? We're listening to someone who's obsessive compulsive or whatever. What I'm listening to is a perfect controller or a bookkeeper. But you couldn't pay that person $50,000 to screw up a spreadsheet. They'd have a panic attack. So if you have God-given talents, so why don't you hire for those?
Yeah, that's why I outsource accounting.
Right, exactly. So yours are more
Excel.
like mine.
I have to do certain Excel things for construction, but I outsource as much as I can because
exactly
I'm just not good
because
at
you're
that.
an executor.
I'm just on the ground, on the phone, delegating.
How easy is it to find your keys for your car every day?
I don't know where they are right now.
Exactly.
I think they're on that desk somewhere. If you ever look.
Come to my office. There's 3 empty coffee cups from 2 days ago. If the cleaning lady didn't grab them, I can't find my keys.
I'm embarrassed when it comes to my truck, my passenger seat.
Right.
It's just like seltzer bottles on the floor, empty bottles, just like, workout shoes from the previous day. Just like.
There you go. So guess what? Based on what I'm hearing, you're probably in the right place on this podcast. Because that woman...
I'm ADHD.
So am I. That's the best... I call it it's the best thing that ever happened. First of all, let's make it clear. ADHD. The last D stands for what? Disorder?
Yeah.
Really? It's my superpower. Are you kidding me? It's your superpower. You show me one entrepreneur that doesn't have ADHD or attention deficit or whatever they call it now, ADHD or whatever. I mean, look at Elon Musk, right? He's the richest guy in the world. whatever you think about him, you think about him. That guy can't have a conversation for more than 15 minutes by talking about 9 different subjects, right? So I call it the explorer gene.
Yeah, they just need to be. We need to be mentored, or we can get messy.
Oh yes,
Like
of course.
that's another topic I want to cover because you do coaching and mentorship.
Right.
And
see, look how off topic.
Yeah, I know.
I've never even told you what happened. Right.
Oh, wait, we have to jump back. Wait.
So my humble story.
Yeah.
Right?
So we started off that you went to that sales job. You started killing it.
Right.
This is our ADHD brains jumping back.
Yeah.
You were killing it. You maxed out. You got that down to T.
Down
and then
to
that's
T.
when I jumped to, sales is good. And we got into Patrick David.
Correct.
So let's go back there.
You'll get a good editor. Don't worry. They'll
No,
streamline
I think we're going to leave
Yeah.
it. I'm not even going to edit it.
Okay, cool. So
Just leave it raw. I don't know.
I started 2 businesses. One in because I saw money, import export online. This is before computers. We were on 56K modems. Okay, back then, right? But long story short, is I went back to Michigan and I was with my mom and I was there and a buddy of mine showed up. He went to University of Arizona, right? A lot of New Yorkers went there. And he comes and my mom says, hey, there's somebody outside. I come outside. It's my buddy Mike Raskin. He's from high school, right? I walk out. He's 22, 21 at the time, right? This is right. Yeah. Senior, he graduated. And he pulls up in a red Ferrari, like a red Ferrari. And I go, what's up? So what's up? I go, what are you doing? Whose car is this? He goes, what do you mean whose car? I go, who is this? He goes, well, I rented it at the airport, right? He goes, but dude, it's costing me back then, $500 a day. That was, $5,000, right, with inflation and everything. So I go, what do you do? He goes, I work on Wall Street. I go, where do you work? He goes, for a guy named Jordan Belford, right?
No way.
Yep. And I goes, come on, what's that mean? Stratton Oakmont. So I had no idea. I said, what do you do? I sell stocks on Wall Street. So this is 1993, 94. So within 6 weeks, I sold everything and moved to New York because I couldn't believe it. And I went and I interviewed with Jordan Belford in Lake Success, Long Island. And this is right around the Steve Madden. You've seen the movie, right? And I went and I got hired because I sold like a mother because from working at AllNet Communications, I learned how to sell. So I came in like, bah, 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 bah. This guy's like, holy shit. So long story short is I went to work for him. By the way, they paid you nothing. Paid me like $100 a week. They told me to get on the phone. I got to open 50 accounts for this guy, Jordan. And we were off to the races. So I left there after 2 months. Why? Because I didn't want to live in Long Island. I didn't know any better, right? I listened to all these guys. They're all 25 years old. This guy's got a Ferrari, a Rolex, everything. The whole scene was there, just like the movie. Very accurate. I ended up at another firm called Nichols Safina Lerner, NSL, which I know Joe today. He's still around. Same thing. I was at Lehman at one time, Gruntle. It was all the same, but I wanted to live in the city. And my buddy Alan was working there. So that's what I did. And again, I struggled with that. You get no money. You got to open 40 accounts. And what I learned from Wall Street, Jordan Belford, Josephina, if you're out there, is I learned how to pick up the phone and ask somebody for $1 million on a phone call, on a cold call, and then I would get 50,000. And back then it was unregulated, right? Just like this was the first crash before the global financial crash in mortgages and then all the other cycles. So it was unregulated. So I would pick up the phone and call a doctor in Scarsdale, New York, and tell him to buy $1 million worth of Intel. That was $6 a share back then. It was the tech bubble, .com bubble. And we would make 5%, okay, commission, and I get him on a $100,000 order, plus we got an insider spread, just like mortgages, another 0.5 point. So if I could ask a guy for $1 million and get a $50,000 or a $20,000 order, I was making 7 to 10% on a phone call. And then I go, here's my sales assistant. Boom, hand off. So I did it. And listen, it's not easy. You learn to pitch, straight line pitch. It's crazy sales, high pressure. They either hung up on you or they called you a piker. You were a midget. So out of 100 kids that came in and worked under these guys, 3 to 4 would make it. That would be it. And 6 months later. And I made it because I was relentless, right? And my biggest learning was there after 6 months, I was pitching bank stocks. And my boss kept telling me, pitch bank stocks. Why? Because they don't move. So what I became was a high stakes bookie out of Wall Street, calling the rich and famous of the country. Called California. actors, right? Right. Hey, this is Jerry Katz. I'm here with Lehman Brothers, right? I got the best idea. Get a pen. Well, what do you mean get a pen? Well, I called you last month. I told you to buy Intel. Intel went from 6 to 19. How much did you own? Right? Oh, that was you? Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. Well, sure it was, because I wrote down stuff that he told me, right? And I got my next idea. And the next thing you know, I'd ask him for $1 million and he'd send me 100. And I was his eyes and ears on Wall Street. And if you don't have a guy on Wall Street, who are you? Don't you want to brag about me at the country club? So here's what I learned, okay, is my boss, I felt bad, right? Like doing this, right? Because we used to pitch bank stocks that didn't move and paid a dividend because we made the most commissions. And I said to him, listen, I don't believe this bullshit. I'm going to go down to the Bear Stearns library. Bear Stearns is gone today. They collapsed with Lehman in the global financial crisis, the GFC, and that's the name today. And so I went down to the Bear Stearns library, and I was a marketing guy in college and management. So I decided to pitch Home Shopping Network. I believed in it. Oh, they're going to sell Home Shopping Network on TV, right? So I pitched the stock at $30 a share. I get all these people to buy it. Let's say I raised $3-4 million from different investors, right? Each taking 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, right? And guess what happened? The Martha Stewart scandal. If you remember, you're too young.
I'm too young.
But Martha Stewart bought insider stock, and she was on Home Shopping Network selling stuff, and the stock went to 6. So the $3 million that I raised, remember, I made a percentage, right? 5 to 7, 8, 9%, churned to like 200 grand. And my boss looks at me and goes, I told you to pitch bank stocks. They don't move. He's like, stop trying to be an analyst, right? So that's when I learned about cycles, interest rates, and I made, I don't know, about $2 million. I got my first check, $11,000 commission check, and my boss made me walk right in and buy a Rolex. $11,000 check. Rolex was $9,800. I looked at my boss and I go, Joe, I'm not buying this. I'll be broke. He goes, if you don't buy it, you're fired. He goes, why? He goes, because do you know what turns a piece of coal to a diamond? What, Jerry? Pressure. Right? So he made me buy it or I was fired. So there goes all my money. I barely had enough for rent living in the city. And sure enough, a month later, I had another check. So that's what I was taught, right? You know, we'll be here for hours. But that was, if you want me to sum that up, I spent up until the dot-com bubble on Wall Street. I made $2 million before I was 30. I bought a condo on the Upper East Side. I bought a ton of stocks, AOL, Intel, all this stuff. And I learned, I was pitching a company called Webvan. That's today's Grubhub. My Quotron, which is my quoting machine, was operating on a 256K modem. Webvan went from $5 IPO to $122 because Wall Street said the internet is the newest thing. There was no technology. We're talking about Grubhub. There was no servers, cloud, apps, iPhones. We were so hyped up on the dot-com boom.
Now we're in the AI boom, the AI
Correct.
bubble.
So what happened? I made a couple $1 million. I made a lot of clients a lot of money too. And then it blew up. AOL.
And you were still holding then, right? So you lost everything?
I lost everything. I was negative $60,000. I had a margin call. The only thing I had was a condo on the Upper East Side with some equity. So I was caught up in it. But I realized what a bubble is. There was no intrinsic value in these stocks. How AOL could do email at that time. There was no Amazon. There was no iPhones, lithium batteries, chips, processors. We were on, like I said, 56 dial-up modems. You got mail. And I'm pitching Webvan. Doesn't exist today, which is Grubhub today. Think about the infrastructure. What are you going to do? Call them up? Order groceries? How do they check the list? Manually? With the checklist? You get it? So what I learned about is interest rates, cycles, economics, bond markets, commission, greed. And at the end of the day, I left Wall Street December 25th, bought a car, sold my place. I had around $40,000 in equity. And I learned about real estate going up.
It was like starting all over again. Almost.
Started all over. But I had a lot of nice $5,000 Frankie Dorito suits with my name on them because they used to make them buy. They used to make you buy them. And I started over. But I'll tell you this. I met a guy. His name was Ben Schulman. God bless his soul. He's gone today. He had cancer. He was my client and my mentor. So he was a big boy. He knew how to play the stock market. He had 20 years on me, right? So he would buy stocks and this, but he would take profits. He would figure that out. But he made his money in what? Real estate. So Ben, his brother is Tiger Schulman. There's around 30 locations, karate schools around the city in New Jersey and Long Island. Ben became my client on a cold call on WorldCom. That stock went from 4 to 80, then went to 0. Bernie Ebbers. It was a telecom, greed, fraud, all that stuff. We didn't know that, but whatever. So long story short is Ben had a Harley Davidson. I bought a Harley Davidson in the city. We became friends, and he would take me up to Harlem and show me how he bought vacant, burned out buildings, rehabbed them, and converted them to multifamily.
So like in person, like mentor. Now you
Mentor.
have like that on YouTube. People show you how to buy stuff and
Correct.
sell that in person.
So Ben like really changed my life. We became very good friends, right? And when I lost everything, he lost, let's say his portfolio went from $1 million to $5 million in the .com bust, but his equity was in real estate. He had trailer parks in New Jersey, retail malls, multifamily, Harlem. And he's like, Jerry, okay, my $1 million went to 5, now it's 1.5. He never margined, he didn't leverage like me. And long story short, he taught me what cap rates were, NOI, value adds.
So how old are you then when you were learning about real estate?
This was like 28.
28.
Yeah, 27, 28, and he showed me how to do it. And then when I moved on December 25th, I bought a car, my first car, took whatever money I had left from that equity, paid off my margin debt. I literally had maybe $25,000 at that point, started over. And I moved to Florida. And he told me to move to Florida. He said, I like the demographics. I like the trends. Everyone's going to retire. They're going to move to Florida. Trust me. And I said to myself, okay, stock market just crashed, .com. Florida had a condo bubble back then on Sunny Isles Beach, even back then. This is 2001. And he said to me, usually the market crashes first, then real estate crashes. There's an effect. So I came down here, and with him mentoring me over the phone, visiting me, I moved into an apartment over here, rented it, and it's literally out his window over here. And then I acquired a 2-bedroom condo in Point Siena over here from a hard lender, an Orthodox guy, and he took it back, and I paid $180,000 for it and bought it with 10% down, and I rehabbed it and flipped it. And with a hard money loan, 12% interest only. So I put 10% down on 180,000, 18,000, and then I put maybe 10, 12,000 into it with credit cards. Back then it wasn't Home Depot, it was Builders Square. We didn't even have Home Depot. Credit cards from there, rehabbed it, and I flipped it for like 220. So I turned, 100%, right? But I didn't know about capital gains. Well, I did, but and that's how I got started. And then I learned how to do it in multifamily, do more deals, use private lenders, use my mentor. I bought a 4-plex in South Beach, cap rates. Here's what most people don't, when I do my podcast, a lot of people don't get this. When you have $20,000 or $30,000, it's not about a cap rate. How do you get the equity up? So long story short, from 2001 to 2008, I took $25K. And everything I did was either a fix or flip, a value add on a multifamily, and everything was a 1031. I established relationships with one broker that knew everybody because there was no MLS. There was MLS, but there was no Zillow, Redfin. He was 20 years my senior, another mentor, Wayne Blackburn and David Matlock. They were partners. And they saw that I was aggressive and an operator, right? So they started feeding me deals, right? Off-market deals because they had sold these properties 10 years before. Without getting into too much detail, because we'll be here for 2 hours, is from that time to 2008, we built $30 million worth of equity because of the 1031s, right?
How do you utilize the 1031s?
Every single time. So if I bought a 4-plex below South Beach at $200,000, I was doing 10 to 15% using hard lenders. So let's just say $20,000 down at 10%, $10,000 in closing, or $5,000, 25, another 15 in value add. I don't know, whatever. Let's say
your CapEx was, yeah.
Right. 40K, right? On a 4-plex out of pocket, right? The rest was a hard money loan. 10, 12%, whatever, IO. Took me 6 months to complete the project. Quickly, I would raise rents. That's what I was good at, what you're doing right now.
Just bringing up the NOI and then bringing up the value of the property.
Exactly, immediately. So the way I analyze the deal is, okay, I got 45 to 50,000 out of my pocket on a $200,000 piece of property, right? Then I partnered with agents because they were my brokers eventually, right? They became partners with me. We sold the thing for $250, $240. We weren't greedy because now what happened? My 40, 50K going in is now 90, right? Or 80. So that's 100% cash on cash, short term. Now you have to 1031
or else you're going to pay taxes on that.
You pay taxes,
So
right?
just roll it into another.
Right. How
So
else?
what do they call it now? The BRRRR method, buy, renovate, buy, rehab, reno, repeat, or rinse, repeat.
Rinse, repeat,
Something
yeah.
like that. The
My buddy
BRRRR,
Colin.
BRRR.
Right. So
I mean, that's what we all do, but I forgot what the exact, things are.
right.
They call
So
it.
like you're a new investor out there trying to do this. You're like some of my friends are in real estate masterminds and they're trying to learn. You know how many times they've underwritten a 5.5 cap and 6 cap and told me they don't work? I didn't even look at that because I looked at
Potential of the property.
cash in, cash out. So where else are you going to get 100% return, right? Let's say today you can, in your neighborhood, whoever's listening to this, right? You find a condo that's worth $80,000 and you go to a hard lender and you put 10% down, 8K, which it exists, right? Yeah, you'll pay 12%, but whatever. It's IO, interest only, no principal. So your payments aren't so far off. Then you put 10K in rehab in it. So you have 20K out of pocket. You paid 80. If you sell it at 100,000, okay, and you net back 16, 17,000 after closing, right? Your 20 just turned to 36. Your 20 turned to 35. Your 20 turned to 30 if you made 10K. That's a 33% return. Where are you going to get that? But most people don't evaluate like that. And then what happens is like at your level and so on, and my level today, now how do I do that with a 400 unit, right?
It's all on the ballgame.
Because you're competing with everybody because you're at a commoditized institutional level. So that's the issue, right?
That is the beauty also of starting on smaller stuff.
Correct.
So let's say to someone listening, like a lot of people are probably younger in their 20s and probably 30s listening. So this somebody has $30,000 lying around. They're working a 9 to 5. They're just getting by. And they're like, hey, this real estate thing seems interesting. It seems like, basic mathematics and evaluating the market. And they're scared to take that jump because they're like, let's say I buy this property, right? I put the 10%, 20% down. I rehab it, but let's say it doesn't sell and I have these holding costs. So, no, I'm just
I get
trying
it.
to play devil's advocate here, like
Yeah.
how you would mentor somebody if they called you, they reached out to you, like how would you mentor them to either get over that fear or make sure they're underwriting it correctly?
Right.
Because a lot of people have that fear.
I'll make it real simple. Make a mistake. If you lose your money, that's all that. It doesn't matter. Because here's the problem and why people are stuck. They overanalyze. They overthink. They come up with every reason not to move. They're paralyzed. If you don't overthink, don't overplan, start sloppy, movement leads to change. You just got to move. And if you move, even if you lost $5,000, if you lost 20 grand, guess what?
You learn something.
You learn so much. You start sloppy because if you're sitting around waiting for the perfect deal, waiting for the perfect underwriting, waiting for everything, so is everyone else. You'll be paralyzed for years. So the key is just stop being comfortable. Stop overanalyzing. Take a risk. If you don't, right? And let's say somebody's sitting on 20, 30 grand and they're 30 years old. If you lose your 30 grand, I got news for you. That $30,000 education, you will never repeat those mistakes. That's it. So today, if you listen to 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Body, Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. I haven't read that yet, but I've heard incredible things about it.
So he gave his kid a choice. I was listening to his podcast, but I've heard this before. You want to go to university? You want to get a student loan? You want to do all that? You want to spend $150,000? That's what it takes today, right? Minimum with housing and tuition and things like that for a 6-year degree. He said, either do that or take $150,000 because no one at any university level will teach you risk tolerance and making mistakes. So you and I can listen to how many real estate courses, how many YouTube channels, pay for a university, pay for a program that's a mastermind, $30,000. Until you take the money and take the risk, that's real learning, right? You will. How many times do you put your hand on a stove that's on fire, right? Once. You don't put it on again. You learn real quick that burner is red. Don't touch it. It's the same thing with anything. But if you don't move, you don't learn. That's, in my experience, You can never be prepared enough. Your perfectionism, which is to some degree the biggest holdback ever. Overanalyzation, analysis is paralysis. Get sloppy. Movement is the key. Once you take one step, you take another, and then another, and then another. And that's what it takes. And if you want to keep your job. Start a side hustle.
You can do this on the side, right? Like I think Alex Hormozy says, because like we both watch his content, so I keep bringing him up. But he was like, everyone, even if you have a 9 to 5, right? Everyone has a 5 to 9. Like, what are you doing your 5 to 9 at night? Like, that's a whole nother day. You could be analyzing deals on LoopNet, on Zillow. You can be, calling brokers, and you have the whole Sunday, the whole Saturday.
Exactly. Or calling for rent signs, walking around, or if you're new in the real estate business, and what I would do is I would make sure my shoes are worn out. Okay, because if you think you're going to call Zillow and brokers and all this, that's what everyone else is going to do. But guess what? Maybe you should find an area that you believe in, right? Sometimes an area like here's a good area and here's a bad area, and there's something that's going to change it, right? Some kind of energy force. The city's going to come in and change the zoning, or a project, or you heard about a Walmart coming in, or some kind of externality that drives growth. Then buy in the area that's not so good, because there's an old saying, which I learned on Wall Street: buy on rumor, sell on news. We all know where the Class A buildings are. We all know what the value of Park Avenue is, right? Or, and so on. So the key is buy on rumor, sell on news.
I love that.
Right. So for me, I always bought where, you got to do due diligence on the government, on the mayor of the city. What programs are this? Are they going to expand Federal Highway by 4 lanes? Right? So I follow demographics, income levels, people migration patterns, and I buy where people aren't looking. And when I see an ugly building and it has a little for rent sign and a little retail shop that's only 5,000 square feet, and I see that the area will change in 24 to 36 months because of whatever's happening, those are the ones I call and say, hey, and you know what? Sometimes I pay them full price because they don't know what's coming. They don't see income levels. Like people, Florida. Oh, Florida's softening. Oh, yeah, the median price house is down. Of course it is. Guess what? It's the best time to buy, folks. Right? Do you believe in Florida?
Yeah. So I'm
right. How many people move to Florida a day?
I don't know the numbers.
It's about 1,000. So, yeah, maybe the patterns are down a little bit because COVID's over and we don't have the spike. But give me a break. I mean, we have a great lifestyle. We have a great government. We have no state tax. Everybody here is an immigrant or a transplant that believes in liberty and freedom, not over-regulation.
Yeah, there's a lot of Cubans, Russians, Israelis, Ukrainians, Italians. I mean, you name it. Yeah, Brazilians, Colombians. All the Latinos are
geographic. Here. And we keep growing. And now our biggest problem is affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
But listen, it'll work it out. And now Citadel just closed their their headquarters in Chicago. They're here. So all of this is happening, and higher incomes are coming in. Goldman Sachs just moved to West Palm Beach. What's up with that? So the point is another philosophy in real estate and in life and anything is if you surf, and you don't have to surf, but if the wave sets are coming, you could be the best surfer or you could be the worst surfer. Those waves will push you to shore. Jump a wave. And if you're in a town or a demographic area where that wave is sinking, like places like Chicago, Detroit, California, whatever. We don't want to talk about that. It could be an opportunity in 24 months. I think something's coming. But the point is ride the wave. Ride where people are moving. If people are moving, right, families are being born, right? Houses of worship need to be there. We need a retail mall. We need a dentist. We need a dry cleaner, right? All that fuels. We need a nursery school, right? So, exactly. So it doesn't take genius work. Or you can buy in Detroit, and you can buy your 5.5, 6 cap, and you probably won't have any upside down the road unless something significantly changes with the government. But how long are you going to wait? Especially if you want to take $25,000 worth of equity and turn it to $30 million in 7 to 8 years. Get a mentor. Find where the growth is. Find where people trends. People follow people. Don't listen to economists. They're 50% wrong. But if you follow migration trends of people, guess what? People need food, shelter, water, services, and real estate, right? That's why multifamily is always my favorite class. Why? Do we need food? I can look out your window and see 9 grocery stores. Do I need water? No. Shelter. Still need shelter. And it's shelter protects you from the fire, from the hurricane. It's also the home of the family unit, right? And that's why I'm always multifamily is still my favorite class, because people will always need shelter, and things are going to change. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. What do you think about like entrepreneurship advice for the next generation? Because I see you're always mentoring. You always talk about you're mentoring your kids, and I'm curious how you go about doing that. Like, you obviously don't let colleges, universities, and schools decide that for your kids. How do you let them get an education, but also at the same time teach them entrepreneurship when they're in their teens? Like, how do you tell them, hey, open a mini business, or like, how do you put that into the next generation? Because a lot of the system, or they, or what do you want to call it, are trying to make people W-2s.
Correct. No, 100%. So you start young, right? So, like, I remember taking my kids to school, and we used to stop at the same Starbucks in the morning. So I get them a half hour early and stop at the Starbucks. And I have 2 boys, Alex and Max Katz. Today, they're 19 and 21. But when we were maybe in the 7th grade, I used to stop at this Starbucks, and I used to show them every morning how I would watch CNBC, look at the stock market, and then I set up like little mock portfolios with them. And I remember one day, a woman that was sitting next to us, she comes over, she goes, you know what? What? She goes, I'm a judge in Broward County, one of the biggest, this woman. She goes, I've been watching you teach your sons stocks and economics for 6 months. She goes, you come every morning, you told them what intrinsic value versus perceived value. You told them the story of Starbucks and how they coached their clients to say grande, venti, right? They don't come in and say small, large. So you start young, you teach them. I'm the changing generation. I was always told, get an education, go to college. And I still do agree with that. You need the fundamentals, right? You need to understand finance, economics. How do you exist in a world where you don't understand the universe, right? And listen, money's money. Money's like oxygen. If you don't have enough, you can't breathe. But if you got enough, you can breathe. So how are you even thinking about college, university, houses, cars, loans, real estate, if you don't understand the system of money? It's like me and the system of insurance. How? Right? I can expand that. If you don't understand how the universe works, whether you call it God, like Albert Einstein, the universe is a defined system. And if you figure out how the universe works, you figure out how to ride the wave of the universe, your belief systems, your ethics, all of that, right? Give me a break. If you're greedy and you're selfish, the universe calls you a criminal. You end up in jail. That's one-sided. If you're like you and your family, it's the other side, or me. The more I help, what's the purpose of a business today?
Serve and help other people.
There you go. See how fast you answered that? Because you get it. Most people answer to make money. It doesn't work that way.
You won't have customers.
No way.
I mean, you might make money until you go out of business.
There you go. But that's how the old school would be. Old school of
a lot
thought.
of people don't understand capitalism. They look at it as an evil thing. It's like, for example, just look at this product, right? Why, we're buying this product. Why? Because they're creating something. We're not forced to buy this. There's a bunch of other products. They're giving you a service or a product, right? It's usually businesses, services, or products.
100%.
They're delivering a product that we're benefiting from. So we exchange value for it, and they give us this value for it. And if they weren't good at making their thing, or their branding wasn't good, we wouldn't be buying it. And people
100%.
like to demonize business owners. And
no way. Listen, today, if somebody asks me what's the purpose of business, it's to solve others' problems. And the way the universe works is the bigger the problem that you solve, the more the universe will reward you with abundance. That's how it works. That's my belief systems. I don't care if you read the Old Testament, the New Testament. I don't care if you read physics, right? At its core level, for me, the universe works is you are put here to be a part of a system, to serve the system and solve the problems. And the bigger the problems that you solve for our system, our universe, whatever it is, the world will reward you with abundance. But if you are self-servant, you think greed, you think what's in it for me, which that's why I ended up on Wall Street and broke. That was where I learned that very fast, right? A lot of those people went to jail, right? Lehman Brothers is gone. That was the next cycle with the bond market and the derivatives, right? And then everyone getting a mortgage. It was all greed-based. The universe rewards you with bankruptcy, jail. You're a criminal, Madoff, right? These are the big names. Now think of the people that we respect, right? That are filled in a world of abundance. The last thing they're thinking is, I want to be the richest guy in the graveyard, buried in my Rolls Royce or my private jet. No, they're thinking about legacy. Your father, the kids, you got, right?
Yeah.
Legacy, right? Like when I met your brother for the first time, we were talking about investing in real estate deals. He spent like 45 minutes with me on this boat, asking me who I am, what I believed, in different questions, because you don't even take investors that don't believe in what you believe. Investors, right?
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, listen, Jerry, if you want to invest, come with us, right? Because he got that I believe what he believes, right? He goes, but don't send us other investors that are in it for themselves, right? They're thinking about how much money I'm going to make. It doesn't work. And
also, you have an incredible inner circle, like you were telling me about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're approaching an hour and a half. I don't want to take it too far.
Cool.
No, I can go another 2 hours, but I don't know if the listeners will want to listen for that long. But I'm saying I want to wrap it on kind of how people can build what you built,
right?
Within like your inner circle, because a lot of people say you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you want to spend your time with people who think big,
right? People
who want to grow, people who will call you out on your BS,
correct?
Right. So how did you build? You were talking about your inner circle. You only allow certain people in.
Right.
And I just want you to talk about that.
You need a filter. First thing it does. So there is, like you said, you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So that's rooted in the system of the universe. Again, I can prove to you every fact of the universe. So law of averages. This is math, or you can read about it in the Old Testament. It's all there. So if I have 5 people, right? One is a 10 in performance, another one is an 8, another one is a 5, another one is a 4, another one is a 3. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but what, 10? Let's say that average is 30 divided by 5. That's 6. So now get rid of the bottom 2. Now I got a 10, an 8, and a 6. Now my average goes to whatever that is. I'm not a math guy. Remember, I'm ADD. So now my average is 7.5. That's the law of averages. Period. End of story. It's mathematical, right? So it's not a theory. So now take those 2, drop them off, and bring in another 9, another 8. So now I got a 10, a 9, an 8, and a 7. Well, now the team average or your sphere average is now a 9. So by the way, that's how you scale companies. That's why you got to always get rid of the bottom half. It's not your fault if they're not ready to swim, right? You can coach, you can train, but that's why you got to get to that level. So first and foremost, you have to understand what your core values are, what your belief systems are. Why do you exist, right? So, integrity is everything. I've learned through my mistakes. I've thought that money and my the one with the most toys wins was my motivation. You learn over time that does not work. That's why I lost everything that I worked for. And then you start to really see how the universe works. It's a world of abundance if you do not focus on the lack. I don't know what your audience is like, but if you look at the 7 days of Genesis, right? God created as a visionary. Picture yourself as an entrepreneur, right? Then he created the heavens, the earth, the planets. Well, the planets, the tide goes up and down every day. There's night, there's day. You don't know one without the other. Those are the managers of the system. And then eventually you got to Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. So he created us in his image. That's exactly how you create your sphere around you, right? Based on that. And then God said in the Garden of Eden, he said, listen, there's 50 trees over here. The universe will reward you with full abundance if you obey by the laws of the universe. Don't hurt people, don't steal them, right? All that stuff, right? And there's 50 trees over there. And if you follow these rules, the universe, which I can break down to even physics, right? And Einstein will reward you with so much abundance. That's what he created. And you're in his image. So follow it. Instead, he said, but don't touch that tree. What do people do? They focus what their lack of, right? The lack of, okay, well, we can't touch that tree and I want to do that tree, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have a good relationship, or I don't have enough bigger house. It's the same principle. But what they didn't hear is, hey, the universe is created perfectly. It's perfect in all its form. It's filled with all of abundance. All you got to do is serve it, help each other. I breathe out oxygen. The tree gives me carbon monoxide. But if I take all the trees, we're all dead, right? Same concept. So why don't people focus on the universe of abundance? The laws are simple. They're laid in physics, and they're laid in Torah, and they're laid in the New Testament. They're all there. Instead, we have wars in Israel, Ukraine, Russia. They don't get it. They're focused on the lack of, right? And look, I couldn't have said this 10 years ago. Now I get it, right? And you know who you get it. And so going back to how you get that crew, right, around you. If you believe in what I'm telling you, there are circles around you that believe what you believe, right? When Martin Luther King says, I have a dream, and 100,000 people walk with him to Washington, 50,000 were African Americans. The rest were all multicultural. Who paid them to go with Martin Luther King to protest white and black? No one, because they believed in what he believed. So if you believe in what I believe, and you have somebody out there that understands the rules of the universe, the rules of abundance, the rules of the universe, the rules of all of these things, I can't tell you enough. You will surround yourself with those types of people. Those types of people have natural abundance in the universe, whether they're the happiest relationships, the biggest businesses, right? Just the most happy communities. And that's where you find them. When you align with what people believe in, when you believe what they believe in, this is how you build companies. That's why you hear things like culture is the most important, right? Because that's where the culture is. People that all go to church, we believe in the same things, right? But the ones that don't end up leaving. But the ones who stay and stay the course, and that's it. So the universe will, I'll leave you with this. The universe is perfect. Everything that you want, you can make. We created this podcast. You created this afternoon. You made it, right? You create your relationships. You create your businesses. You create your house. You create your kids, whatever. The universe is designed to be full of abundance and allow you to create whatever you want. That's the beauty of it, right? Now there will come a time where what you've created is no longer serving you. Just like the laws, right? That just means you need to learn something to get to the blessing on the other side. So everything is created perfectly to teach you something to get to more abundance. That's the key. Just don't focus on the lack. Otherwise, that's your life. It's that simple. You're in control of the universe and your life.
That is very powerful. You should just quit your job and be a motivational speaker.
Listen, I'm in the zone. I told you this. I love it. But listen, it's so true. So you can only blame yourself. That's it.
Awesome. No, because I was listening just to wrap it up here, but my rabbi was giving a speech. Mm-hmm. He was giving a class, and he was talking about why we're unhappy. So I'll even send it to you. It was very interesting. It's like 4 reasons why you're not happy. And he was saying that he said, obviously you shouldn't sell yourself short. You should strive to do more and to always try to achieve more. Mm-hmm. But he was saying what people do is when they have the $50,000 car, they're looking at the guy with the $70,000 car. When the guy's a 70, they're just playing that game and they're always looking like, oh, I wish I had. It's never enough. He's like, okay, let's say God gifted you with a $50,000 car. Look at the guy with a broken down $20,000 car.
Right.
When you're driving, instead of saying, oh my God, look at that Lambo. Yes, you should not saying you shouldn't look at the Lambo, but like you should look over. He was saying, look at the guy in a broken down car and be like, you know what? Thank you, God. Right. That I have a new $50,000 car. Like, he's like, sit there. He's like, I know it sounds cliche. Appreciate it. Sitting there, right? Got it. I'm like, I'm going to probably keep repeating this the rest of my life. And he said, and then he's like, when you look at people on the bus, he's like, look at people they don't have a car. They're commuting at 11 o'clock at night with 50 people. Like, stop. He's like, stop just looking. He's like, appreciate the now. And then you could start, okay, I'm going to try to move up. But he's like, people just want to like, it just, obviously we're built to want to do more. But I think, you killed it, man.
Well, we were programmed that way.
Yeah.
Right?
But you're saying, like, just enjoy not
the
lack. Don't focus on the lack.
Right.
Focus on what
you
have.
So if you, I agree with everything you said, like the people on the bus. chances are the people will stay on the bus because they're focusing on the lack of also, right? But you have to live in the now and be grateful. I agree, right? But there's something like, why are you saying, okay, hey, I don't want to stay on the bus? So that's where people get stuck and comfortable, right? Since I take the bus and they pay me $15 an hour and it's near my house and it's from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I can take care of my kids, they get stuck there. So that's one thing where the universe, you have to ask yourself, is this still working with me? For me, sorry. And if it's not, that's when you go back, you have to make the move. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you got to always, I mean, we can go on forever.
Yeah, I know we can.
So there's one last saying is you got to push your comfort zone. And I always say at my office, get comfortable being uncomfortable because you're always comfortable. I mean, listen.
No, I love it.
We were built to serve. You're serving right here. You're on this thing, and we're here for a reason. So whatever they did, we got here.
If one person's listening and they really appreciate what Jerry had to share, and they like, hey, I'm going to apply one of these things. I'm going to write these things down. Drop a comment. Follow Jerry on his YouTube, and I guess one more thing. I have an outline of what I want to cover. Right. Pretty much. I don't like sticking to the script. I just like
Joe Rogan the way it style. Yeah. Sometimes they go 3.5 hours.
So my wife would just kill me if I get home. I know. Because I've been out of the house since early. But where can people find you? Where can people find you? How can they contact your company? How can people get mentoring from you, coaching from you?
That's probably my next phase. I mean, listen, I
feel like you're built to serve. I feel like you,
100%.
In the future should probably dedicate a day to just helping younger people who are stuck.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm probably gonna be calling you in a moment.
I love it.
Like,
so,
hey, Jerry, help me out.
So I've mentored several businesses that started at $250,000, and I've got them over to 10 million. It doesn't always work, but I do it. I believe that I am my best, and this is why I do this too. I am my best when I am for others what I need for myself. So when you call me and say, hey buddy, will you come on my podcast? I go, of course. Why? You know how much reinforcement I got today for myself to live how I am, to be who I am? I'm repetition. Remember, habits, right? Yeah. Systems and processes. So today, just how can I say all this stuff and not go live it? I'm programming myself.
So you're essentially forcing yourself to do the thing.
Well, how many podcasts do you listen to a week? How many audiobooks I listen to a week?
Same.
Right. And people, you don't go to work, do you? Very rarely. You live life. If you're sitting there listening and they're saying, I got to go to work, it's a bad sign. Chances are you got to make a shift, right? So you can find me. I'm branded at Jerry Katz, JerryKatz CEO. Just Google it or just Jerry Katz CEO all over the web. It's my Instagram, my X handle. I'm the host of Real Estate Profit Boost, so that focuses on high net worth commercial real estate investors. But my Instagram is great. My X is great. My Instagram caters to 18 to 30, and I love it. Because now I'm getting called up to FSU to speak at universities, and it's so cool.
So much fun. You're just living life.
Yeah, I got to.
I'll also link up everything for everyone listening. I'll link all that stuff below.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you should probably buy the domain before someone buys it.
Jerry Katz CEO, I got it.
No, JerryKatzConsulting.com.
Oh, yeah. So I got Jerry. Listen, I had all these crazy stuff out there, and I never thought about creating I always thought about it, but I didn't
thought it was
serious. Yeah. So I had to find a name, and the one that's stuck on all platforms, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, yada, yada, is Jerry Katz CEO, and the domain was available. So I got it.
So you got the domain. That's awesome.
It's nuts, though. So if you put in Jerry Katz CEO, it's there. It's it worked. By the way, and mentorship and coaching, whenever you vet people for their core values, remember, it's not the deal, it's people. Underwrite people. Don't underwrite deals all the time. Underwrite people. You and I both can underwrite deals all day. Underwrite the people, and then I spend a lot of money on professional coaches. But like I told you, when I got
like you
content,
said, with content creation, that's something I want to talk to you about.
Shout out to Evan Carmichael, rock star. I interviewed 9 different content coaches. I felt like 6 had hidden agendas, and I couldn't trust them. Mm-hmm. Right? That's critical. I would have never known that at your age. Never. Because I underwrite the people and their belief systems if they believe in the universe.
I just consumed a lot of YouTube to learn about content creation and how it works.
Yep.
And that's kind of how I've been doing it. But
yeah. The key with the kids is coaching. Don't tell them what to do. Coach them. If they ask you for help, then give it to them. Otherwise, let them make the mistakes. My son just started his first business. He's a bait business and a captain. He's a big fisherman. And I asked, I could
That's
reverse.
Awesome.
I could reverse engineer his business in 30 seconds with AI and tell him why it will be profitable or not. And I stop myself, okay? Because he's got to figure it out. And now that I let him, he's making mistakes and he's asking me. That's the key.
You should let him come to you first.
Yeah, 100%. Very difficult to say, did your father always tell you what to do? My father's always told me what to do. And chances are 9 out of 10 times I'm never going to listen when someone tells me what to do all the time. I mean, I knew my father was trying to do the right thing always, but like, you know, it's very difficult to tell people what to do.
People don't like being told what to do, especially people who are defiant and, you know,
right.
entrepreneur-like people. They don't want to be told what to do.
No way. Most people don't want to be told because that's your truth, not their truth. Ask them, what do you like to do? What comes easy to you? How do you naturally help other people?
That's awesome.
And that's where most people will die with God's gift inside of them, and then they got to come back around again.
Hey, amazing. Guys, Jerry Katz. I don't know, this episode of the YM show, maybe number 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone listening, I think this was super impactful. And yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait
Great
to
stuff.
see
Thank
it.
you.
Right.
Thanks for
Looking
coming
forward
on.
to
Really,
it. Listen,
really, it was awesome.
when he's all famous and he's huge, right? We'll look back at this episode and it'll be like watch, it's going to happen.
You're already envisioning, which is wild. I can see that. You're already like, you think big, or you look at my cute little podcast and you're like, oh, it's going to be
No,
big.
but listen, you did it. You listen, first of all, you planned, you did it right. You got a great setup here and everything, but like I said, you got to get in movement.
Yeah, I started, so for everyone listening, I guess we're going to continue this podcast.
No, go ahead.
I could do a whole nother one on how to, like, literally all I got was the audio interface, which was these. And then I started off with just an iPhone. And then I went to iPhone and I borrowed an iPhone for 2 angles. Then eventually I invested in one camera and I was doing 2 iPhones. And then now it's 2 cameras eventually. I'm like, you know, and then that camera.
Right.
So I just started, I didn't have the lighting. The lighting is a new thing.
Right.
To get better, you know, visuals. Because my first 10 episodes were like terrible lighting. Like it just looked.
But isn't it funny? You still got traction and you start rolling. That's what I said. Start sloppy.
Yeah.
The key is you went out of your comfort zone. You did it.
And my audio was people were like, dude, the audio has to be fixed. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So then I try to look up how to clean up the audio with ChatGPT and AI software. And like, I'm still learning. Like,
so
anyone comment below if there's things how I can improve this episode. Because
listen, that's great. Comment below. We can improve the episodes. But you're exactly what I talked about. Your success, right? You didn't overanalyze, overplan. You started moving. You want to not get stuck? Move. Right now you're on your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th episode. Everything starts to change. If you don't move, you don't learn. You learned. And that's what I mean. So you're way ahead of the curve already. And I hope everybody hears that. And I'll see you on your 100th podcast. Deal?
all right, awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Come back in a year or so.
All right.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.
How you doing, guys?
All right. God bless.